Apollo 13 flight controllers, listen up. Give me a go, no-go for launch. Booster.
Go.
Retro.
Go.
Vital.
We're go flight.
Guidance.
Guidance, go.
Surgeon.
Go flight.
Ecom.
We're go flight.
GNC.
We're go.
Telmute.
Go.
Control.
Go flight.
Procedures.
Go.
Inco.
Go.
FAO.
We are go.
Network.
Go.
Recovery.
Go.
Capcom.
We're go flight.
Launch control, this is Houston. We are go for launch.
Apollo 13 was the seventh manned mission in the American Apollo space program and the third intended to land on the moon. The craft was launched on April 11, 1970 at 1:13 CST from the Kennedy Space Center, Florida, but the lunar landing was aborted after an oxygen tank exploded 2 days later, crippling the service module upon which the command module depended. Despite great hardship caused by limited power, loss of cabin heat, shortage of potable water, and the critical need to makeshift repairs to the carbon dioxide removal system, the crew returned safely to Earth on April 17th. The Apollo 13 mission was not supposed to be historic. 3 astronauts, Jim Lovell, Fred Hayes, and Jack Swigert, were supposed to go to the moon, a destination that people seemingly were no longer interested in. In fact, their broadcast from space didn't even make the news. And then the words came, "Houston, we've got a problem." On Earth, the astronauts' families waited in horror as the reports continued to flow in. Bad reports. Gene Kranz, the flight director in Houston, worked around the clock, just hoping that something will actually go right. And Ken Mattingly, who 2 days before the launch was stripped of his chance to go into space due to the measles, attempts to figure out a way to get his friends back home. And suddenly, the news media becomes attentive as the whole world watches, praying for the safe return of 3 brave astronauts. 205,000 miles from home, the 3 astronauts watched as their crippled jet jettisons oxygen into space and carbon dioxide levels rose to brain-damaging levels. They watched as the temperature dropped past freezing, icing the windows and numbing their bodies, as they watched their spaceship get farther and farther from Earth, realizing they never see home again.
Despite the historical accuracy found throughout the film, there are certain areas that are not historically correct.
Houston, we have a problem.
Thomas Ken Mattingly was supposed to be on that crew, but was yanked at the last minute because he was exposed to German measles. The movie shows him wallowing on the couch with a can of beer before hearing of an oxygen tank explosion on board. He then spends most of the movie stuck in a simulator, helping to save the 3 men on board the spacecraft. Real life wasn't quite the same as the movie portrayed, the real Mattingly said in a 2001 interview with NASA. For one thing, Mattingly had no assigned role in the rescue, as he was a backup crew member. He ended up working in a lot of teams rather than a single project or 2. There also were some technical difficulties between the movie and real life. In the movie, mission controllers huddle in a side room and try to figure out how to stretch the resources of the lunar module, designed to carry only 2 men for a couple of days, into a 4-day lifeboat to support 3 men. While this is somewhat true, NASA already had a preliminary lifeboat procedure simulated. In the movie, Mattingly spends hours in a simulator putting together the procedures for starting up the cold, dead command module in time to bring the astronauts safely back to Earth. While that is a good way of conveying the mission's aim to the public, the simulation runs, done by other astronauts, Mattingly said, were more of a verification of already written procedures. None of the Apollo 13 astronauts actually said, "Houston, we have a problem." Quibbling over word choice might seem extremely nitpicky, but given that "Houston, we have a problem" has become number 50 on an American Film Institute list of top movie quotes in all-American cinema, it's definitely up for critique. In the movie, Lovell, played by Tom Hanks, delivers the tagline after one of Apollo 13's oxygen tanks explodes en route to the moon. But transcripts of the audio recordings from the actual mission show that shortly after the explosion, Hayes started to say, "Okay, Houston," and Swigert interrupted with, "I believe we've had a problem here." Ground control asked the astronauts to repeat, and Lovell then said, "Houston, we've had a problem." For the film, Hanks reportedly suggested slightly altering the phrase to get the immediate urgency of the situation across.
1 minute and 30 seconds to end of blackout.
No re-entering ship has ever taken longer than 3 minutes to emerge from blackout. This is the critical moment. Will the heat shield hold? Will the command module survive the intense heat of re-entry? If it doesn't, there will only be silence.
The dark side of the moon isn't the same as the far side. There's an arresting moment in the film where Apollo 13 simultaneously passes into the shadow of the moon and loses contact with Earth because it was going around to the dark side. But in reality, it didn't quite happen like that. The dark side of the moon isn't always dark. Though the moon is tidally locked to Earth and the same face is always turned toward us, the far side of the moon gets about just as much sunlight as the near side. Picture what the far side would look like when the moon eclipses the sun during a solar eclipse, for example. The dark side of the moon and the far side of the moon are the same side only during a full moon, and during the Apollo 13 mission, the moon was only half full. The craft was already in the moon's shadow before it passed behind the moon and lost communication with mission control. A similar moon-related error comes at the point in the movie when Hayes, Bill Paxton, points out the Sea of Tranquility where the Apollo 11 astronauts took their first steps. But the shot of the moon in the scene actually shows the March of Decay and the Hadley Ryle, the future landing site of Apollo 15. The re-entry problem was much bigger than moon rocks. In the film, before Apollo 13 re-enters the Earth's atmosphere, Mission Control tells the crew their course towards Earth is shallower than it should be, because they hadn't collected hundreds of pounds of moon rocks as expected. While the real spacecraft was coming in at a shallower angle than usual, this wasn't a weight issue. Galileo could have told you that the differences in weights don't affect the rate of falling in a vacuum. What actually happened was that Apollo 13 was carrying an unexpected piece of baggage on its return flight, the lunar module, which was supposed to be left on the moon. And the cooling system of the lunar module turned out to be sending water vapor out behind the craft, creating an unexpected force that knocked Apollo 13 a little bit off course, requiring another engine to burn to correct the course.
Despite its few historical inaccuracies, overall this movie is very valid and can be considered a historical film because of a very accurately documented historical event, the Apollo 13 mission.
This film is highly recommendable for use in a classroom setting for history due to its historical accuracy and more often than not very valid simulations of what actually happened during the Apollo 13 space mission.